Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Gonna do a new wave of British heavy metal video. I was listening to singles a couple of weeks ago, cleaning some singles, and ended up cleaning and listening to a new wave of British heavy metal classic, and it kind of led me down the rabbit hole. And spent the next couple days pretty much spent a new wave of British heavy metal, which it's a pretty common rabbit hole that I go down. But let's just kind of jump in, take a look at a few 12 inches, and I'll show some singles. Actually, what kind of led me in this direction again was that I recently saw Girlschool. They did their final U.S. tour. I guess it's been about a month and a half now, maybe. And that already had me in the mood. And then when I played that 7-inch, I just kind of ran with it. So, but while I was at the Girlschool show, I also picked up their newest album. It's called WTF 45. 45 years as a band. It's crazy to think that. But this is their new album. Pretty good. I signed by the band. I really dig it. There's three or four songs on here that are really good, traditional Girlschool sounding songs. That I really enjoyed, and the rest of it's pretty good. It's not a great album, but I mean, they've been putting out records for 45 years, and this is better than a lot of the stuff that's coming out now. So really enjoyed that, and the show was fantastic. If you've seen any of the live streams, I've kind of told this story. The opening act was, I keep drawing a blank on their name, Alcatraz. So it wasn't the Graham Bonnet Alcatraz. It's the Alcatraz. There's two versions going around right now. It's the version with the keyboard player, the original keyboard player, and the original bass player. And the original bass player only actually played on one or two songs. They had another bass player play the rest of the show. So it was really just the keyboard player. It was still pretty good. I mean, it's a bunch of songs that I love. Joe Stump was the guitarist, who's fantastic, super underrated guitarist, really good. Definitely in that Yngwie, Steve Vai style, you know. So they were good. I really enjoyed them. But Girlschool is just fantastic. But during the Alcatraz set, the ladies from Girlschool were in the crowd, and nobody around them realized who it was. You know, it just looked like a bunch of British grandmas. In reality, you know, you couldn't see their shirts. You know, they were kind of bundled up a little bit. You know, and then 40 minutes later, everybody's going crazy. And what's funny is after the show, once people realized who they were like rushing them to get autographs and stuff, which I just thought was amusing. But that people just didn't see it or didn't realize who it was. Next up, so I might do a video on this band, just covering kind of their whole career. So these guys were really late. I mean, I think their first single was 84, maybe late 83. Their first LP was late 84, early 85. So really at the end of New Wave of British Heavy Metal. But I love their single, and I really like their debut album too. But this is Desolation Angels. This is the album King. I'm not sure what this one is. I don't know if this was a new album that they did. I believe this was like 2018 when this came out. But there is a album that they recorded right after their first album that was never released. So I don't know if this is... I couldn't find enough information. I don't know if this is just a new album or if this is that material. But I mean, it's still in the New Wave of British Heavy Metal vein. And I did enjoy it. They were a good band. They were a funny band, though. So after the success of their first album, they moved to the U.S., they were doing shows in Hollywood, and they just never got big in Hollywood because Hollywood was going glam and thrash, and for some reason they were stuck on that new wave of British heavy metal sound. And you're talking into 88, 89, they were putting out demos and stuff, and it was straight new wave of British heavy metal. They just didn't get it, you know what I mean? And I have a feeling that a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal acts that had been gone for 20, 30 years and 2017, 18, 19 started putting out albums again once a new wave of traditional metal kind of blew up and revitalized brought those early new wave of British heavy metal bands to the forefront again. So that may be what that is. I'm going to do a little more research and see if I can figure out, because I do want to do a video on that band, because it is an interesting story. Next up, one of the early new wave of British heavy metal bands, kind of some of the forefathers in the movement, and sadly a band that never got real big, and they were a fantastic band. I really like this album. Their singles are fantastic, but this is the newcomers from Holocaust, from '81. A lot of the new wave of British heavy metal albums, the singles were fantastic, and then an album would come out and it would kind of be lacking. That wasn't the case for this one. I really like this album. They were just a really good band that just never got big. They were on Phoenix Lark Records. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it, but this is a great album. Next up, this is one that John Bit Bop Boom turned me on to. This is actually his favorite new wave of British heavy metal band, and I had never heard of him until we started chatting about him, and I ended up grabbing it, and I really dig it. And I know exactly why. This is his favorite band, but this is Rock and Roll Gypsies from Spider. I think they have 3 albums. This is the one though. I've listened online to the other to the one after this, and I like it. It's not as good as this one though. They're more on the rock and roll side of new wave of British heavy metal. Some of their songs are basically just early rock and roll with a little distortion and some overdrive, which that if you know John, that's his thing. He loves early rock and roll. He loves rockabilly, and you hear that in this band more than some of the others. Really killer album though, and this is one you can get. I bought this one sealed. This is a sealed original. I think I paid like $25 for it shipped. So this one's out there. It's definitely worth picking up. I think you guys will really dig this one. And then the last 2 are the 12 inches. This is one of my favorite new wave of British heavy metal bands. I love their first 2 albums, but with their 3rd and 4th album, they brought in a new singer whose name was Luther Belts. So again, this was one of the early new wave of British heavy metal bands. They were one of the first to put out an album. Their first album was from like January, February 1980. So they were super early. They're one of my favorites, but they're not a fantastic band. And they didn't have that thing that made them stand out a bunch of others above a bunch of the other bands. They were a little bit doomy, a little bit proggy, just really good new wave of British heavy metal, and I dig those first. Actually, their second album is my favorite, but I really dig these 2 with the new singer, and how I would kind of compare these. I'm talking about Witchfynde, by the way. How I would compare these is kind of a Judas Priest, like a basement Judas Priest or a club Judas Priest. Mixed with King Diamond vocals. So the good thing about Luther Belts that made these albums so good was he could hit those highs just like King Diamond could, but he also had kind of that Rob Halford in there too. So he wasn't. A lot of people prefer the real highs with King Diamond, but they're not so big on his regular singing voice. I personally prefer Merciful Fate because he sings more, kind of mixing the highs in. And that's kind of where these guys were, but more of a traditional heavy metal sound. The other thing that kind of hurt these guys is that they always had these evil satanic covers that made the albums look evil, and they didn't sound that way. They were just really good heavy metal. Even if you look at the pictures on the back, it looks like you're going to get like Venom type of thing going, or a King Diamond type of thing when you look at these album covers, and that's just not what it is. They kind of have the same problem that Demon had, or that Satan had. Their names and their imagery, it evoked one thing, but when you listen to the music, it's not that. You know what I mean? And I think that hurt them too. This band was also really hurt by label issues that I've never heard of from another band. They had 3 labels in a row that fell apart right after their album was released. I mean, it's insane when you look at the label history. These guys just had terrible luck. They just put out an album like a year or two ago. It was okay. It's basically just the guitar player who was the founding guy in the band. But the first 4 albums are fantastic, and they just released a couple years ago Witchfynde Lost Tracks 1975. So that's how early they were. And those, I've listened to it online. I haven't found the record yet, but it's really cool too. It's kind of this cool mix of bluesy hard rock, a little bit of hard prog, mixed in with what would become new wave of British heavy metal. So, I mean, even in 75, they had a little bit of that sound in there, just with some bluesiness to it. So, very cool. Highly recommend checking out Witchfynde if you haven't. And then, you know, with new wave of British heavy metal, it's really about the singles. And this was the single that kind of got me going this direction about a week and a half ago. Sledgehammer. I love this single. I haven't heard anything else from them. I like both songs on here, though, Sledgehammer and Feel Good. This is one I've been looking for a long time, and I found a seller in the UK that had a bunch of. Actually, I shouldn't say I found it. I gotta thank brother Scott Waters. And actually, this is a lot of this is because of Scott, because he either turned me on to the sellers. There's a couple here that he sent me as VCLT, so definitely got to give a shout out to Scott here. But Sledgehammer, really killer. Again, really like this one. One of my all-time favorite bands is Raven, so I pulled this one out. This is actually one that Scott sent me quite a while ago, but Break the Chain. Love this one. Actually, next time I see these guys at least once a year. They live in South Carolina and they play here in Atlanta all the time. I want to get this one signed. Another favorite, the first couple Tigers of Pantang are my favorite. I actually have more Tigers of Pantang singles on the way here from England, but this one is Don't Stop By and Slave to Freedom. Off their, I want to say, was this their second album? This might have been their third album. And then I like this song, but this one is kind of when they started to go for it. They were looking for that pop metal. They went that pop metal route on Caged, and you've got Life of Crime and Rendezvous off of that album. Again with the Girlschool, spun Hit and Run with Tonight, also Race with the Devil, and Take It All Away. And then Nothing to Lose, one of my favorites from Girlschool, and Baby Doll. Back to Holocaust. This is fantastic. If you want to kind of tip your toes into some of the really good new wave of British heavy metal, this is a great starting point. This is Holocaust Live from the Raw Live and Loud and Live tour. This is not super expensive. You can get it for about $10. And it's really, really good. I highly recommend this one. Next up, this one's a double 7-inch Life on the Run from Samson. This is right after Bruce Dickinson left the band, so he's not on here. But the live version of Bright Lights that's on here is a 10 out of 10. It's one of my favorites. This is another one. It's a double 7-inch, 4 tracks. You can get this one for a good price as well. Usually $15 or so. Another Samson here. I can't remember what song this one is. This is Losing My Grip, and then Pyramid to the Stars. I believe that one was after Bruce left the band as well. A couple of Iron Maidens, Run to the Hills. So I've got all the Iron Maiden 12 inches. Whenever I run across the UK 7 inches for a decent price, I grab them as well. And that's what this one is, with Total Eclipse on the B-side. And then this one I just bought because it's cool. It's an unofficial pressing, but this is Shoot the Fokker and Holy Smoke. Both songs, or I'm sorry, Shoot the Fokker. It's Tell Gunner and Holy Smoke. And the name of the 7 inches, Shoot the Fokker. But just really, I love the artwork here. Probably paid too much for this. I think this one was like $15, which I think is a little bit much for a bootleg, but I honestly bought it for the artwork. Some later stuff from Saxon. This is Rock and Roll Gypsy. This was off of, was it Crusader? This may be the album after Crusader. I can't remember off the top of my head. But really killer artwork there. Love that one. I want to say this is 86, 85. Nope. Yeah, 86. And then back to Spider again. This is the one that John turned me on to. This was also a double 7-inch package. It was buy one. Yeah. Free with this single comes Amazing Grace medley, which is really cool. Rock and Roll Fever, or Rock and Roll Forever Will Last, a fantastic song. And the B-side was Did You Like It, Baby? And then it came with this, like a 12-song medley. It's really good, too. I was shocked. It's called the Amazing Grace medley. And it's basically an instrumental medley where they start with Amazing Grace and they roll into a traditional Irish jig that you guys would know if you heard it, into Paranoid, into Smoke on the Water, into Whole Lot of Rosie, into Hava Nagila. And then they finish the A-side with Race with the Devil. The B-side, they pick up on Race with the Devil, roll into Rain, then Cowboy from Thin Lizzy, then Freebird. And it's a really fun list. Now, I spun this like 6 or 7 times. I was really digging this. I actually may spin that again when we get done here in a few minutes. Really killer, though. Again, the Spider stuff is relatively cheap. Rock and Roll Forever Will Last is a killer song. Check that one out on YouTube, and that'll give you kind of an idea. One of my favorites, huge thank you to Scott for this one. So this, I don't know who the seller was, but he had some kind of connection with the band. But this is Vardis. So apparently this guy found a box, and it had a bunch of new old stock 7-inch. These were the original 7-inches and the original sleeves that had never been sold. He also found some t-shirts and some patches. So I bought the 10-inch and the patch, and I think it was like $15 shipped from the UK, which is an amazing price. This is like a $30 7-inch. So Scott let me know. I let a couple people know, and they were sold out within a day or so. Really happy to have this one, though. But this is If I Were King, which is a fantastic album. If you guys haven't checked out Vardis, that's another one. Check out 100 Miles Per Hour. Super, super underrated band, though. They should have been much bigger. And then last but not least, this is Warfare. This was actually never released by itself. This was a promo copy that came with the Warfare debut. This is This Machine Kills. And the B-side is Burn the King's Road. Just really killer. Really happy to have that one. I have never actually seen the Warfare album with this. So, and I haven't bought it the few times I've seen it because the 7-inch wasn't there. So now I got the 7-inch. Next time I run across the album, I'll end up grabbing that. So that's it. Just kind of went down the New Wave of British Heavy Metal rabbit hole. There'll be more. I've got another big package of New Wave of British Heavy Metal stuff coming in. More singles here. More singles here. That's not all New Wave of British Heavy Metal, but a good portion of it is. So I hope everybody's doing good. I will see you soon. Take care, BC. Bye.